285 in the Maamar Rabi Omer.
Okay.
And let us learn. So, what we're learning about is the importance of an ava b'chol ma'odcha. And the reason why the Rebbe is speaking about a love that's infinite is because we're talking about b'chukaisai. In b'chukaisai telechem, if you, not if, remember, mistake, right? Remember, it's not conditional. Halavai b'chukaisai telechem. Hashem says, I wish that you will engage in b'chukaisai. So the Rebbe says, chukaisai is plural, not chukah, chukaisai. So, what's the chukaisai? And he talks about this idea of doing Torah and mitzvahs to impact the outside and the inside. The outside of the person and the inside of the person. In the terminology of Chasidus, chakika mibachutz and chakika mibifnim. Because the word chukaisai has another meaning only. Besides meaning a law, a statute, it comes to the word chokakti. I engrave. So these mitzvahs that are statutes, meaning they don't have any reason and logic to them, but gezeira gozarti, Hashem says, I made a decree, and we call them engraved. Why? Because this is the real essence of the person. When you do something that's logical and makes sense, you don't yet know that the person is doing it because they're committed to Hashem or because of themselves. That's why in the Parshas of Akedah with Avram and Yitzchak, it says, Ata yodaiti, ki yirei elikim ata. Ata, now I know that you are a God-fearing person. And everyone asked the question, what? And Hashem didn't know that Avram is a God-fearing person by the first 9 tests? He was tested 10 times. Let's say the one of the tests, first test was the Kipshanev, jumping into the fire by Nimrod. You mean a person who's willing to jump into a fire, you don't know that he's doing it for you, God? Why does it say, someone take, Yoni, your finger's on, it's making noise. Take off your mute it, please. You don't know after 9 tests that you're a God, that he's doing it because of God, not himself. And the Torah doesn't say that. The Torah says, Ato yodaiti, now I know. So Chasidus explains that the first 9, as great as they were, and as Mesiras Nefesh that they were, there was always a slight possibility that he did them because of some sense of self, of ego. Allowing yourself to die for Hashem, for a cause, even the cause of your people, is still a cause, is still an ego-driven, in a very sensitive sense, in a very refined way. But when it comes to taking your son, as bincha yechidcha, your only son, who's supposed to be the one that's going to build the Jewish nation and be the continuation of your seed, not Yishmael, but Yitzchak, and here you say, slaughter him. That's what we call an oxymoron. It makes no sense. It's a contradiction. Hashem, you want to have a people, or you don't want to have a people? Make up your mind. And Avram didn't ask any questions. He could have easily asked the question that I just asked and made the statement, the argument, and said, I'm sorry, I'm not doing it. You can't have it both ways. And guess what, guys? How many times do we do that? We argue with ourselves and our spouses and our rabbis and our community and employers. You can't have it both ways. Make up your mind what you want. Right? Avram didn't do that. So the Eibishter says, Avram, Ata Yodaiti, now I know, Ki Yarei Elikim Ata, that you really are a God-fearing person. There isn't an iota in your bones of self-aggrandizement, of yesh, of ego, of selfish cause. It's all for the Eibishter. This is the level of Chakika. This is when we say that Torah and mitzvahs is ingrained in your blood. It's engraved. You can't separate you from Torah and mitzvahs. I give the example, and I've given it to you, but it's again worth repeating. What's the difference between a tzaddik v'toiv loy baruch in Tanya and a tzaddik v'raloi? Tanya chapter 1 and then explained later in the chapters. A complete tzaddik and an incomplete tzaddik. Moshe Byers. It's a Gemara Brachas. So according to the Gemara, it means how many brownie points do you have? How much mitzvahs and how much averas? And depending on that, you're either a complete or incomplete in the 5 categories that the Gemara mentions. The Alter Rebbe, in the beginning of Tanya, the first chapter, brings this Gemara, and he says that we're talking about something deeper in the heart, a character issue, a spiritual issue, a soul issue. Not just a brownie point issue, you know? Is the scale tipping this way or that way? Of course, the scale's going to tip one way or the other. Schar of einish, reward and punishment, is emes. It's not to be belittled. But if that's your entire vantage point, as Moshe has said, and we go back to the story of 2 weeks ago, that's the type of rigorous lifestyle you lead and want to lead. But for many others, and he included himself, so we could say him and probably most of us, it's too rigorous, it's too restrictive, it's too unhappy. We have no room to maneuver. It's so funny. Yesterday, my youngest daughter, Devorah Leah, graduated the school that she's been in with her friends for so many years, and next year she goes on to... Thank you. She goes on to seminary, and for these girls, it's a milestone. It's a milestone for everyone, especially these girls. And the room was full of women and bubbies and children, and there's only 2 men in the room, and guess who they were? Rabbi Dalfin and another Lubavitcher. No one else.
That's funny.
I'm telling you. And I turned to the other Lubavitcher who I know, and our wives grew up together in Australia, and I say, take a look at what's going on over here. And not to put anyone down, but the Borough Parkers are not coming to an event that's pretty much for girls. It's a girls' school. They have a boys' division too, but this was the girls' division. And who are the only 2 that come? And, you know, they gave us a place, and they made, you know, it was very respectful, you know, with the 2 Lubavitchers. You know, you pay attention. It's a whole ethos. The Lubavitchers are able to be in that setting, and it doesn't fathom them. It doesn't fathom, you know.
Rabbi, what were you doing sending your daughter to a non-Lubavitch school?
That's for another time. Anyway, it's an ecumenical school. In other words, they're very pro-Lubavitch. It's a discussion for another time. She needs to be in that school. So why am I saying that? Because we're learning about Chakika. You know, the Torah mitzvah is engraved in you. When something is engraved in you, it's in your bones. And it as long as you're alive, it's there. So what's the difference between a tzaddik, a toiv, a tzaddik, a ralei, complete or incomplete tzaddik? So the example I give is that they put you in a barn, right? And so too, a rosh of a toiv, a rosh of a ralei, right? They put you in a barn and it smells terrible, and you bang on the door and they lock the door from the outside. You're together with the animals and the schmutz and the smell, and you're going crazy. So one response is, I can't take it, let me out of here, and you're screaming and shouting. The other response is more extreme. You take your life, and you say, if I have to live with animals, it's not life. It's tantamount to death. It's extreme what I'm saying, and it's an idea. It's the idea. The idea is, how much of Torah mitzvahs is your life? Is it possible to have another life? That's hakika. And this is an avodah. This is something that we work on daily. And that's why davening 3 times a day and learning and doing mitzvahs and helping, all of this helps engrave Torah mitzvahs that you can't separate the two. You know, when you hear a story, the Mittler Rebbe, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe, they said that if you cut his finger, what would come out of his finger? Not blood, but Chasidus. He was so enamored with learning Chasidus and knowing Chasidus and thinking Chasidus and living with Chasidus. You know, like we said, the kishkis, the schmaltz, the gravy, the essence of the person is hakika, of Torah. So that's what we mean by hakika. I just wanted to bring it down a little more practical, what hakika means. So once the Rebbe is speaking about chukaisai hakika, it's engraved in you. He says, what does that mean as far as your love for Hashem? Well, he says, well, there's three ideas of love. V'chol avavecha, uv'chol nafshecha, uv'chol me'edecha, with all your heart, with all your soul, and b'chol me'edecha, with all your might. The difference is, the first two are temporary, meaning it's a love that lends itself to a temporary experience. Chol me'edecha, with all your might, is the ava it's eternal. Lo nifsak li'olam. That's what we learned here, and that's why it's called Mayim Chayim. And Moshe told me a nice thing yesterday after the class, that when he brings the L'chaim to the H. Kodesh Shul on Simchas Torah, they call it the Mayim Chayim. The real Mayim, the vodka, the L'chaim. What's the pshat? I mean, it's not just a cute joke. The L'chaim, if it's a proper L'chaim, not just someone who wants to drink and become kuku, but he's saying L'chaim because he's so happy that with the Torah on Simchas Torah, and he's dancing with the Torah, and he hugs the Torah, and he kisses the Torah, and this is his life, and he expresses it through a L'chaim. That's the L'chaim of the Ava b'chol meidecha. It's limitless, it's infinite, and there's no boundaries. So the person is just like, you know, at the wedding of your child, especially if it's an only child, but even if it's any child, you know, you're in a different place. As the previous Rebbe writes in certain Maamarim that there could be people who by nature are stingy. Karg is the Yiddish word, karg, stingy. And at the time of their child's wedding, they're so generous and magnanimous. Why? Because the inhibitions go away, at least for that night of the wedding, of your child's wedding. The B'chol Me'edecha is a constant feeling of this Ava. So now we can continue the end of the page 285, the first paragraph, the last paragraph. He says, V'zeu b'chinas mayim chayim, v'hu ha'mechoykek. Remember, what does it say in Bamidbar? Be'er chafaru asarim. Look at the top line of 285. He quotes the pasuk. A well that is dug by the ministers, the sarim, b'mechoykek b'mishaneisam. B'mechoykek, the Rashi says, refers to Moshe Rabbeinu b'mishaneisam with their stick. So the Rebbe says, now going back to the last line of this paragraph, v'hu ha'mechoykek. He teaches the word mechoykek from the word chakika. B'chinas chakika ayidei achukim. So you got three things. Hillel, this is a good rasha for you. Mechoykek, chakika, chukim. The chukim, the laws, the statutes, are engraved in you through the mechoykek. Who's the mechoykek? The Moshe Rabbeinu. And that ties into what we'll talk about Shem Thursday at the Fabrengen for Gimel Tammuz, that a tzaddik, a rebbe, is a neshama that helps a yid be mechoykek, engrave Torah mitzvahs. That's what a rebbe is. A rebbe is not a big bucky in Shas. A rebbe is not a prophet. all those are side benefits of what a Rebbe is. A Rebbe is Rosh B'nai Yisrael. What does the Rosh B'nai Yisrael do? What's the mission of the head of the Jewish people? The head of the Jewish people is to help a Jew install within himself the emunah in HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a way that it's eternal. That's what the Rosh B'nai Yisrael does. But we'll talk about that later. So here he says, V'hu ha-mechoykek b'bchinas chakika, number 2, al yidei achukim. So in other words, when you do a mitzvah yoni, of shatness, of tzitzis, of paradum, a mitzvah that does, the Torah does not give a logical reason, it's in that mitzvah, in its observable form, that one can experience the chakika experience. In the simple English, Moshe Bayes, the simple English. To do something that makes sense is not as difficult. To do something that doesn't make sense is very difficult. Why is it very difficult? Because it makes no sense. And not only does it not make sense, sometimes it's contradictory. Right? Like I said before, make up your mind. What do you want from me, Hashem? You want me to learn and daven and do mitzvahs, but you don't give me enough parnasa. You want me to continue, and you make a hard time with shidduchim. You want me to serve you, and you bring corona to the world. What are you doing? Could you tell me one person who didn't think about this in the last 3 months? And the question is a good question. Right. And the question is a good question. And what's the answer to the question? There's an answer, Moshe. There is an answer. Chakika. Hashem says, I want to see what you're really made of. I want to see what you're really made of. You've been having a great time right now, riding on the camel or the horse and living it up. No, let's see what you're made of. And Baruch Hashem, that we don't have to go through the insayin that our parents and grandparents went through in Russia and by the Nazis in Machshemam. We finished that stage. Ge'endik, finished. So the Eibishter has Rachmanas on us, and he says, not that. But I still, it's 2000, it's Tufshin Pay, 2020, big buildings, big money, Wall Street, Teslas, Warren Buffett's, big, ooh, everyone's flying here, flying there, on airplanes like your living room. Hashem says, really, I'm going to show you. I'm going to see what you're really made of. Is it just a lot of bluff? A lot of bluff. And he brings this COVID, corona, and the world stops. I don't care who you are. Everyone stops and everyone runs like a scared mouse or a scared chatul. And everyone is hovering and closing, and it's in the mikveh. I'm in the mikveh, and a guy runs a mile away from me because I'm walking towards the shower. And I say, what are you running? My Rebbe said. I said, okay, your Rebbe said, I'm not going to fight with your Rebbe. But don't go to the mikveh. What are you coming to the mikveh for? You're scared. What are you going to the mikveh for? No, you want to go to the mikveh, and you want everyone to follow you. I'm sorry, it's a mikveh for the public. Okay. What are you made of? 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 So the Eibishter really has put it in front of us. And anyone that doesn't understand this and recognizes is a big fool. Is a big fool. I mean, it's so obvious that the Eibishter sent us. People say, why did God do this? Why did God do it? You should be able to answer why he did it. He did it because he wants to test you to see what you're made of. And me, and all of us. And he had to do this. Yeah, he had to do this. You know why he had to do this? Because we're getting very comfortable. So I'm not coming from the perspective, it's a punishment. That's not the Chabad language. It's not that type of approach. But at the same time, it's a wake-up call, and a big wake-up call. And it hasn't finished the big wake-up call. What do I mean? You only just told me before the shir. Again, they're closing the schools. They're supposed to have summer school. And, and the chaos continues. Total chaos. But the Eibishter's help, there's no question that it's going to all be in a good way. I'm going to see the greater good. But until that moment, every one of us has an obligation to look into themselves and say, what is this? And this is what we're saying here in the Maamar. These three things come together. It's in chukim. It's in chukim that you see whether you're really there or you have more to work on. So let's continue learning because I want to learn some more. We're chapter 4 of the Maamar now, page 285. Through the chukim you shall walk, and you shall watch my mitzvahs. The pchinas teilechu tzricha shmira. Wait a minute. It says, please turn off, mute yourself. It says, Ves mitzvosai tishmeru, and your mitzvahs you shall guard. This level of teilechu, that you become a goer, a walker, needs shmira. Why? In Ksiv it says, I will make you be walkers amongst the standers, ones who stand. The virtue of walking and going is much greater than the virtue of standing. There is an advantage to a type, is it a type B personality? Whatever that personality is. Calm, cool, collective, analytical, standing. Not rushing, not running. What's the advantage of Oimdim? She'ein bahem yerida. They don't fall as easy. A tree stands tall, is rooted. You can count on it. You'll be back in 10 years, you will see that tree still there. Whereas the bird who's soaring on high might bump into a building and see its end. Conversely, those that are mahalech, that can be that they will have a yerida, they will fall. And that's why they have to be ves mitzvosai tishmeru. And we know so well in ourselves and others, people who are at times running and rushing and pursuing, and they ended up in a lot of hot water, both spiritually and physically. So the guarding is al yedei ha-mitzvahs. When you confine yourself to doing a mitzvah, it watches you. It keeps you intact. You want to do something outrageous, and Hashem says, no, that's not the mitzvah. The mitzvah is so-and-so. And you listen to that mitzvah, then you are guarded and you won't get hurt. And he said, yes, Hillel.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point. We're talking about the Omdim, that I'm reading a Maamar from the Talmud Rebbe on Parshas Korach, and he's describing this fascinating distinction between the concept of Yerida and Nefila, specifically that Dalfin v'Aviram, they said no lo ya aleh, we're not going to go up, and he says that basically when nefila is something sudden that happens to a person when they fall, which can certainly happen when we're walking, but Yerida is when a person they set themselves on like the wrong a certain idea, a certain path that determines that they're going down, and that was the kind of example of Datan Aviram, that they had sort of set themselves a certain attitude that made it impossible for them to grow, to continue to go up, and they had to go down.
Thank you.
But that's a distinction, and that's what you're talking about. They became, in a certain sense, we'd say psychologically they had sort of fixed ideas like Omdim.
Right.
You know, and that for human beings is a very dangerous state.
Right. Shmira, and this Shmira is through the mitzvah, Shah mitzvah saying Kalim. Why Moshe mitzvahs the Shmira? Because mitzvahs are containers, are Kalim vessels. And they contain you to be normal. There's something to be said to a containment. It's not that containment is there to harass you. And you can't be mispashit. And you can't express yourself and extend yourself. Wrong. The containment is healthy for you. So that you don't go crazy. Mitzvahs help you stay normal and balanced. And
grounded.
What grounded, right? And we saw people who were well-meaning, but they didn't follow the script of mitzvahs. They ended up doing things that to themselves and others that was unhealthy spiritually and materially and physically. So mitzvahs help you be grounded. Good word, Yoni. Mitzvah is called a candle. Ner mitzvah. The Torah, and Torah is oil light. Uperush neir Hashem v'apsila. A neir has oil and a wick. Ukmai kein akili nikra neir. So to the vessel in which the neir is called neir. V'hainu shayidei ha-mitzvahs. Through mitzvahs, yesh gam kein amshocha. It draws down godliness. U'kumash mevorchem, as we say in the bracha, and we say this in the bracha, Asher kidishonu b'mitzvaysav, who has sanctified us, he has made us holy through his mitzvahs. In other words, when we do a mitzvah, we become kadosh, bechinas tainigo elyon. The supernal pleasure and delight is bestowed upon us. V'hashoymer es atainug. Someone turn off your thing, please. V'hashoymer es atainug. And the one who guards this pleasure that's given to him when he does the mitzvah, zui ha-mitzvah gufa. In other words, what's the pleasure? Usually you say like this: you work hard, you have pleasure, you make money, you can do something. You eat, you have pleasure from it. Here we're saying the mitzvah itself is the pleasure, not the mitzvah will cause some other pleasure. So, in other words, now we put on tefillin in the morning. Even if we, daven and we think, but we find pleasure in putting on the straps. Well, Mashiach will come, and it will be clear to us that this mitzvah of putting on tefillin will be so pleasurable. So we can't wait another moment to put on tefillin in the morning, because the mitzvah is pleasurable. That's why mitzvahs are called limbs. 248 commandments correspond to 248 limbs of the king. Limbs are considered vessels. In the limbs, there are the energy, the vitality that gives life force to the person are contained within the limbs and guarded by the limbs. And going back, what are mitzvahs in their very source? They're the will of God. The Taryag mitzvahs that I said, the 630 mitzvahs of the Torah, the 7 mitzvahs that Rabbanon, and the 7 mitzvahs of the Rabbanon, rabbinic mitzvahs, hein tarach, they are tarach, Tov Reish Chof, equaling 620. Amudi Oyer, pillars of light. Pchinas Keser, known as the level of the crown. Shayidei Zehu HaHiluch. This makes the person who embraces the 620 mitzvahs, the Raisa and the Rabbanan, biblical and rabbinic, and the person attains and is given a pillar of light, a crown, and this makes him be a Mahalech b'chukosai teilechu. So too, how does one guard the light and energy that's given to him? It's through the mitzvahs. And that's what the Torah says. Right after saying, it says, Perush, S. It says V-S, right? Baruch, V-S. What's the meaning of the word S? K'moi im. As though it would say if. The im, the im, mitzvahsai hi hashmira de b'chinas telechu. Not if, with, im, with. That the way the mitzvahs will make you be a telechu is through the mitzvahs which become a shmira for you. Then the Torah continues, you shall do them. Shetiya ha'asiya, the mitzvahs kedaboyi. What does it mean, vasisem oisem? You shall do them. The Rebbe teaches, the Rebbe is what he's doing in the previous Rebbes, each word is defining. He's saying, vasisem oisem, you shall make it be. You hear that, Hilo? Vasisem oisem, you make them be. You make the asiya. And explains that you should do the mitzvahs properly. Take, for example, doing something with your right hand. When you do it with your left hand and you're a righty, the malacha, the activity, the work that you do is not nice. Page 286, top of the page. Right? It comes up, it comes out. You're like, on Chalamoid, you're not supposed to write. So if you have to write something, you write with your left hand. No? Imagine how it looks. It looks terrible. Top of 286. What we're saying is, Vasisem osam, you shall do the mitzvahs. It means you shall make the mitzvahs with cheshek. Cheshek means pleasure, desire, delight. Gishmak, and to exert yourself, and then it's like writing with your right hand, if you're a righty, or a lefty for left hand. But doing the mitzvah half-baked or half-asleep, no. We know how a mitzvah like that, you did the mitzvah, but it's a mitzvah that's really, it doesn't have a lot of gishmak. Conversely, if you do the mitzvahs with weak hands, how do you do the mitzvahs? It's ordinary. Mitzvahs anoshim melamoda means mitzvahs of men that are trained. You could say ashrei and with tefillin in your pajamas and half asleep or 3/4 asleep. It's in your bloodstream. Modani, brachas. And that's the way you do mitzvahs. Bikridos with apathy. Look what the Rebbe says here. Very powerful words, but right to the point. Eina mamshech klum. What we spoke about before, drawing down the delight of Gan Eden and all that. You ain't getting that, buddy. Not from a half-baked mitzvah. You did a mitzvah. And there's a connection no one can take away from you. But as far as getting the delight, yes, Moshe.
Yes, Terry, can you just go back for a second? The word rafos,
comes
means
weak, loose. In the Torah, in Parshas B'Shalach, by Ve'ene Yisrael Rephaim, I think is the lotion over there. Rape means weak and loose. Shvach, weak, a weakling.
Okay, and then it keeps going.
Derech mitzvahs, the looseness and the weakness in this activity of the mitzvah that you're doing in a shvacha way is what we call derech mitzvahs. It's the style of mitzvahs anoshim, of men doing mitzvahs mulumada, because they're trained that way, by rote, by habit. And that's why those mitzvahs are what? Are rape, weak, shvach. But look at what I'm focusing on now is the 3 words, Eina mamshech klum. Baruch, you see what it says here? It's an amazing, tough statement. Now, what does it mean, Ein Mamshech Klum? I thought when we do a mitzvah, you'd meet the guy on 47th Street or 5th Avenue or on Dolev and you say, come, you Jew, I Jew. When you roll up to sleep, you put on the tefillin. Boy, you got him and he's in and everything's great. And the answer is, that's true for someone that doesn't know better. But someone who knows better, and you should be, really into it, your mitzvahs eina mamshech klum. Ki im tzorach liyas becheshek. Rather, how should mitzvahs be done? Becheshek. Remember that word, guys. Becheshek. It's a Hebrew word which means like delight and pleasure. Geschmack. In Yiddish, what? Zest. Becheshek, v'gia, and effort. You know why we dance Simchas Torah? Moshe, I want you to remember this for next Simchas Torah when you're in shul and share it with people. Why do we dance so much? The previous Rebbe says in a discourse in Tufshin Beis in 1942, the same time these Maamar was said, he says it's to teach us to have schwitz for a mitzvah. The one time a year that we have a mitzvah, a minute that we're into, is to teach us that you should exert yourself to the point where you're sweating. It's Simchas Torah when you dance. I'm sorry to say, but I've been to shuls where they dance like, they dance. Did you ever see the way, even forget about Chabad for sure, but even Satmar and Kloisenberg and their Rebbes, they have, everyone stands around. Have you ever been to their Simchas Torah? They stand around and the Rebbes have a little Torah, and I saw this, and they start running back and forth, and they're like going wild, and they're working up a sweat. Sweat for a mitzvah. Schwitz for a mitzvah. That's what the previous Rebbe says is the objective of dancing with the Torah, Simchas Torah, is to teach you that that you have to sweat for a mitzvah, and it doesn't come easy. And you sweat for the mitzvah, then you're mamshech. Then you've drawn something down because you paid for it. You've given your time. Paid doesn't mean just money. You're into it completely. Yeah, knock yourself out for a mitzvah. So the Rebbe says, "V'zeu v'asisem oisam." Right? Going back to that pasuk in Bechukoisai, this is what it means. V'asisem oisam. Do the mitzvahs. Make the mitzvah. V'asisem, make the mitzvah. Shetia pchina simcha shel mitzvah. That in the mitzvah you find the simcha shel mitzvah. You're really happy doing the mitzvah. How can you be happy if you sweat for something and you work at it and you see the result of that? You become very happy. You feel good. Look what your hard work has caused. And every one of us in our own lives, we know, whatever we do, when we see the fruit of our hard work, we feel good. We feel simchadik. The Rebbe says that's the feeling we should have when we do a mitzvah. And this causes that from heaven, the energy comes into the world. You want chesed to come into your life. Sweat for a mitzvah. The chesed is such that it goes with everything else. If you are able to bring down chesed into your life and into the world, it will impact the gevura and the rachamim and all the other midos. What time is it?
2:47, Rabbi.
Okay, we'll stop here. And Mitzvah Hashem, tomorrow we'll continue. And then Thursday we're having a Fabrengen, so tell some of our friends that haven't been, please tell the other Chevra, everyone, not just Lubavitchers, to come. And it's a special day, and Daberster will help. I'm putting up a clip today on kronheights.info, and on YouTube, my channel, I made a 25-minute Fabrengen for Gimel Tammuz. So if you have a chance, I think you'll enjoy it. Okay? Sei gesund, everyone. Have a great day.
Can you send us the link to that on the WhatsApp? To the
Yes, I'll send you the link. I'll send it very soon. Sei gesund. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.